There's no arguing that everything is getting more expensive these days, and that's especially true when it comes to cars. Only a decade ago, the cheapest car would set you back about 13 grand. Here in 2026, we're looking at starting prices that are well past $20,000. So what can you get for that kind of money? Well, this is the new 2026 Nissan Sentra, which is one of the most affordable sedans on the market, with the starting price just shy of $24,000. We'll go over all the improvements and drawbacks in this review, but before we get to that, do us a favor, hit those like and subscribe buttons below to get all of our latest content. With the discontinuation of the Versa, the Sentra is now the least expensive vehicle in Nissan's US lineup. It undercuts the Kicks crossover SUV by less than $100. Nissan is calling this an all-new generation, but personally, I consider it a major update instead. It looks all new inside and out, but underneath it all is the same platform and drivetrain from the previous 8th generation Sentra. Up front is the wide V-shaped front fascia that Nissan began implementing with the all-electric Aria, and I like it a lot more than the old flying V grille. I think it gives the Sentra a more modern and sleek look. Down the side, it looks more like your typical compact sedan with nothing that really stands out to me styling-wise, while in the back it almost has some Lexus flavor in the taillights. Overall, I like the way this new Sentra looks, but what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Under the hood of the 2026 Versa is the same 2-liter 4-cylinder engine from the last generation. It makes 149 horsepower and 146 pound-feet of torque, which is right in line with most other cars in the class. It's paired with a continuously variable transmission and is exclusively front-wheel drive. Nissan retuned that transmission for sharper response and smoother operation, while the chassis has been stiffened in an effort to improve comfort and handling. Did they succeed? Well, let's go for a spin and find out. Knowing that this has the same engine as the last generation Sentra, expectations for performance are pretty low, but I don't think it's entirely fully justified. Now, it'll take 9.5 to 10 seconds to reach 60 miles an hour, which is oppressively slow nowadays, but it doesn't quite feel that slow. That's because the response right off the line is fairly quick. Makes it feel a little more powerful than it actually is. And when I was getting on the highway this morning, I didn't really have to floor it to get on the highway to match the flow of traffic. So in the end, it really isn't that much of a penalty. Handling wise, well, it's competent, it's not sporty, and it doesn't need to be. This isn't pretending to be anything sporty or fun. This is just basic transportation that looks pretty nice. The brake pedal does feel unusually soft though, but it's one of those things you can get used to. I don't need that much of a stiff pedal since this isn't really a performance car. But overall, it's just easy to drive. We're on some coarse asphalt right now and you can hear some road noise, but for the most part, when you're on the highway or in city streets on regular asphalt, it's pretty quiet. The same goes for wind noise. I didn't hear any on the highway. So yeah, in those instances, this interior just keeps getting better and better. Visibility is pretty good. This front roof pillar isn't too thick. I don't have to bob my head to look around it. And the view out the back is about what you expect from any sedan nowadays. As far as all the advanced safety features, well, you get all the typical bits and pieces, frontal collision warning, blind spot, everything works really well. I haven't had any false alarms either. Now, when it comes to ride quality, I do have a complaint. I think it's needlessly firm and a little busy. Now, on some of the smaller bumps and kind of high frequency, choppy pavement, the steering wheel gets really busy and you get a lot of jostling and just a little bit of harshness when it comes to initial impacts against potholes and bumps. I feel like it could be a lot smoother, especially when you consider that these are only 17-inch wheels with a decent amount of sidewall on those tires. I haven't had the chance to try out the Pro Pilot Assist in the Sentra yet, but I have in other Nissan vehicles, and it works really well. The adaptive cruise control is really smooth, and once you get to the mid-level trims, that adaptive cruise control brings you down to a full stop too. Overall, the Sentra just kind of fulfills its mission of basic transportation. But that's not the whole thing, so let's pull over. Let's go over the interior next. The new Versa's interior gets a more significant redesign than the exterior, and I think it pulls it firmly into contention against other rivals in the class finally. Standard features include this 12.3-inch infotainment touchscreen, and in the higher trims you get this 12.3-inch digital instrument panel. The base trim gets a slightly smaller panel. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both wireless and standard, and audio-wise you get between 4 and 6 speakers depending on trim level. But here in this top SL trim, you get an 8-speaker Bose premium system, and it sounds pretty decent. This model also gets you 17-inch alloy wheels, this sunroof, and synthetic leather upholstery with kind of luxurious quilting, which in my opinion is sort of like putting a chandelier inside of a trailer, but having it really does dress up the interior. You also get a surround view monitor and Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist, which is their hands-on automated highway driving system. Comfort-wise, I've always been a fan of Nissan's zero-gravity seats. They're shaped just perfectly for me. I'm 5'10", so just sort of average American male sized, and it just seems to cradle me in perfectly. There aren't any hard spots or lumps or anything that I have to complain about, except maybe the option to get ventilated seats on a hot day, but fortunately, it's pretty chilly today. This infotainment system is a big step forward for the Sentra as well as Nissan in general. The graphics are nicer than before, the responses are much quicker, and there are more features. Overall, it just feels like it belongs in today's modern compact car class. Some of the climate controls are built into the screen, but most of them are in this separate unit just below. I typically like physical buttons, but unfortunately these aren't really buttons. They're more like those smooth surface capacitive touch buttons, which makes it a little difficult to use without having to glance down. But the good news is I really haven't had to adjust the temperature or anything else much, except for maybe the heated seats, but those are also pretty easy to get to. I like how they gave me a central volume knob here, as well as some extra buttons for the camera, as well as skip forward or skip back. In this top trim, the materials inside are quite a bit nicer than the other trims, especially when you consider that quilted leather upholstery. And I also like the subtle blue hue that they use for the door panels and dashboard. It kind of opens things up a little, gives it just a little bit more personality. The higher trims also come with a wireless charging pad that easily fit max-sized phones. Behind that, we have two fairly good-sized cup holders and a very deep center armrest bin. Door pockets are about average in size and will hold just the kind of smaller water flasks. Overall, I think this interior is a huge improvement for the Sentra, and it really doesn't feel like a penalty box anymore. Rear passenger space is pretty much the same as last year, which means it's adequate for me. I'm 5'10", sitting behind the driver's seat, which is set for me, and I'm sort of at the limit headroom-wise, but there is still about an inch above me. Plenty of knee room, and a good amount of space underneath the seats for my feet. Materials quality back here isn't quite as nice as the front, although it does look pretty much the same. They match the color and textures really well, and I like how they carried over the blue into the back of the seats. Here in the center console, we have a USB-C charge port, but no air vents. There are some floor vents that'll push some heat towards the back passengers, though. Here in the center, we have an armrest with moderately sized cup holders, and overall, it's not so bad back here. Behind the rear seats, we have 14.3 cubic feet of cargo space, which is a decent amount for a compact sedan. This time around, the opening is wider and lower for easier loading, and I also like these remote seat back releases. The 2026 Sentra starts just under $24,000, while this top SL trim pokes just above $29,000. Of all the trims, I think the SV trim is the one to get if you're on a budget. It has just enough upgrades to keep it from feeling too cheap and only costs $770 more than the base S trim. The only sedan that costs less is the Kia K4, and only by $500. The Sentra and the Kia undercut the top sedans in the class, but not by that much. Starting prices only increased by a few hundred to around $1,000, though Nissan's liberal financing practices could sway some shoppers. The EPA estimates the Sentra will return up to 32 mpg in combined city and highway miles, which is low for the class. Most of its rivals are rated between 34 and 36 mpg, and they also offered hybrid variants that can get you more than 50 mpg. I still consider the Honda Civic the leader of the class and worth a modest price premium over the Sentra. I feel the same about the Hyundai Elantra and Kia K4, while the Mazda 3 is my personal favorite for its sporty driving experience and refined interior. The problem there is that price flirts with the $40,000 mark. After spending plenty of time with this Sentra, I think most shoppers on a restrictive budget would be better served by any of those alternatives. My best advice to get the most for your money is to actually look for a used model or one that might be coming off of a short-term lease. Except for the Hyundai and Kia, you still get the full warranty and you won't have to suffer with the original owner's significant depreciation. The hybrid models will save you even more money. But what would you do? Would you opt for the Sentra or go for the more expensive rivals? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and we'll see you in the next review.